Alrighty. Hey everybody, welcome back. We are going to continue on now. We are moving away from Rails for a touch. We'll be spending some more time there, obviously, as we go. But now we're going to look at some other things that are, you know, other frameworks that exist out there for you. And again, there are a lot of different possibilities for server-side languages and server-side scripting. So the first one we're going to look at here is PHP. Now this one has been around for quite some time, and I have a couple of guides here for you. So this first link is basically, it's a faculty member's intro to PHP for, I'm going to assume, a class similar to this one. However, this is the 2012 timeframe, and that is quite a long time in terms of the internet. But a lot of these ideas and technical implementations are still valid. You'll probably have to tweak some things if you follow that guide verbatim, right? We're in PHP 7X, I think at this point. I don't remember what the current version of PHP is. But things change, obviously. But the core ideas are still there. Now, PHP is a server-side scripting language. And all that really means is that you need to install PHP onto your web server, have it hook into whichever web server software you are using, and it will basically be there for you to use. Pretty straightforward, honestly. Now, for us, we're using, if you're following my guides and all that fun stuff, we're using Ubuntu. We are using Apache for our web server. So you would need to install PHP, how you would install anything in Ubuntu with the aptitude package manager, and we'd have to add the hooks for Apache. Now, if you just do a sudo apt install PHP, you'll get PHP. It will basically bring in everything you need for Apache. You just then need to restart the Apache server, and I'll show you that in a moment. But there are a lot of other packages and utilities that you can install with PHP. If you want to work with a database, you need to install the MySQL packages, and there's basically a ton of different things that you can do. PHP has been around for a long time. It's been extended many, many times, and honestly, there's a lot there. And if you are doing a simple application where you don't need all of the extra overhead of something like Rails or similar frameworks, there's nothing wrong with PHP, honestly. And if you have server-side access, which you probably do anyway if you're doing something like Rails, you might want to consider PHP because honestly, really, it's pretty good. It's pretty lightweight, and it's again pretty well entrenched in the web. So this first link again is that guide that I showed you. The second one is a newer reference for PHP 7. So it's a little bit out of date because it's 7.1, 7.2. Obviously, you can find other references as well for the current version of PHP. And just to .net, I keep thinking it was .com. That's why I searched for it. What version are we at right now? 8. Oh, we're at 8. This tells you how often I look at the PHP website. I thought we were still on 7. Okay, 8.1.2. So we're getting up there. If you are a complete newcomer to PHP, basically the big thing in recent years is making it much more object-oriented, kind of more extensible. I'm going to show you some very simple things that we can do with it, though. So, server-side scripting language, it can be used in line with HTML. So kind of like when we're doing the Rails view templates, we had that angle bracket %sign. That's basically injecting a server-side script into our HTML code. And what I've got here, this is the long form, so the short form I'll show you as well. Basically, here I've got a h1 tag, and then I've got this bracket question mark PHP echo a string semicolon, close that off, close the h1 tag. This is just printing something out. Now the shorthand is drop the PHP, replace it with an equal sign, you get the same thing. This file would need to end in a .php extension for it to be rendered. Otherwise, you're just going to get that inline text. And I'll show you this here as well. So other things, this is a server-side language. It's part of the system and plugged into Apache, so everything will be in that var www HTML directory. And just to kind of give you the quick run through, sudo apt install PHP, already installed, don't have to worry about that. Sudo system control, restart Apache 2. If you're doing something other than Ubuntu, you'd have to translate this to whatever call your system uses to restart server-side services. But yeah, I could, let's see, so var www.html, and I can create I have to go back to using sudo again because I haven't changed permissions. So I'm going to create a test.php file, and I can say php, close php, echo php info. All right, so this is the simplest hello world script for PHP that you usually see when you install it, and I think we did this with the lamp stack installation. All right, so kick off a PHP block of code, and that block echo is our print statement, and PHP info is just going to return how your server is configured. So if I go back to my web server here, and this is just going to be running on port 80 now, test.php. Okay, so here's my PHP that I've installed. So I see I have 7.4.3 installed. So this is whatever is the most up to date in the apt repository. If you want to go newer with, say, PHP 8, you would have to install that yourself by hand, basically. So you'd probably have to go to an upstream repository or, pull something else in. But what else do we see here? So we actually see some info about the server. We see that it's running Apache. We see some of our hooks and our config file paths, API modules that are enabled, that are disabled. Basically, if you want to know detailed information about your PHP installation and the various things that are installed, do a PHP info. Very easy to find. All right, so let's go ahead and update this a touch. So I'm going to turn this into an HTML page. I'm going to skip all the standard things that we should have in there as good developers, and I'm just going to put in raw code. Welcome to PHP. All right, get rid of this PHP info. Your name. Well, not your name since you're not interacting with this. My name is username. Oops, didn't need that semicolon there. Okay, so I've got a few things here, and this is not going to work. Obviously, my name is blank. Oops, it didn't work. This is a variable. It doesn't exist yet. Let's go ahead and create this at the top. So php, and say $username equals Eric. So a couple of things here. This is just raw injected PHP code into a standard HTML page. It has a .php extension so that Apache knows to call PHP when rendering this thing. Up here, I've got a block. This is not going to be rendered. This is interpreted by the server. So basically, anything that's inside of a PHP block, and again, this is the long form. This is the short form. There are some comments on the internet about whether you close the last PHP tag or not. I'm just always going to close it regardless, but that's just me. So we have this, and then my name is Eric. Interesting. So the point about it not rendering, if it's rendered on this, or if it's handled by the server, Apache and its PHP handler are going to go through, parse out all the PHP code, and not place that into the HTML. Here, it is being placed into the HTML code because it's being printed to the script. All right, so to just kind of give you another view here, I'm going to copy this. So sudo cp test.php to test.html. So now I've created a copy, but I've given it an HTML extension. We go here, and it actually just doesn't work. I thought it would have been rendered. Yeah, it's rendered. Okay. Interestingly, I think the browser is interpreting for us. They didn't used to do this, but if you look here in our elements, we actually see this PHP script in here, and it's being commented out as kind of a safeguard, I suppose, by Chrome. But if we go to our test.php page, okay, so here's our same script, but the PHP script. I look at the elements. This code, the PHP code doesn't exist anywhere. It looks like a standard HTML page. So I guess point number one, if your scripts aren't working, make sure the extension's correct. Other thing too, Let's get rid of this test.html. If you screw something up, which will happen, right? Let's say I make a typo. Oops, I made a typo. If you go to your page, oops, let's copy that and not go to the HTTPS version. You're in a, that's interesting. Okay, apparently I'm not gonna break it. So odd cut probably there. I was trying to induce an error in my page and it was just failing silently. So if you get a 500 error or something bizarre going on with your PHP script, basically you probably have a typo somewhere. There is something missing, some kind of PHP error. You need to go into the php.ini file, which is the configuration file for PHP, and enable errors. So basically you get a big fat error message up here on your screen. I was trying to just like break it. This is a bug. Okay, now it's not. So I'm laughing because I just put some garbage in here before and it worked fine. And then I did that and okay, maybe it was just cached or something like that. But we see this 500 error. We know something's not right. And if you remember when you looked up your error codes, 500 meant a application error, means you screwed something up in your server-side script, or in this case, your PHP code. So let's move on so that we can kind of, get going here. Now, a couple of things. We are going to, again, focus on Rails and React in a little bit, so we're not going to go super deep, but I just want you to be aware of PHP and what it can provide for you. So I'm going to show you a forum and a quote-unquote fake article page, mainly because I don't want to go through and install a database and do all that fun stuff. If you want to go that route, more than welcome to, and please feel free to message me if you, want some more information on that. But let's do a quick forum here. So I'm going to create a brand new folder and sudo mkdir forum test. Simple name. So let's go into this forum test. All right, and I want to go into forum test in my browser just so I can easily refresh it. Quick little tidbit here. If you are seeing a page that looks like this, your server is configured to do a directory listing, which is usually not a great idea because it's going to show every single file in here. The way to get around this is to put a index page, whether that's index.html, index.php, if you have PHP installed, or to tell Apache, do not do this. Usually you don't want people skimming through your directory contents. So let's create an index.html. And did I do this with, yep, I didn't do it with sudo. Sudo that. Okay, HTML, we're leaving off the doc type out of laziness. Body, close body. All right. Let's do a forum. Action equals process.php. Method equals get. Hopefully we remember our forum syntax from before. This means that whatever happens in this form, when I submit it, it will go to this particular page, and we're going to send the variables through the query string. So I'm going to just make the ugliest page in the world because it's going to have no fields or captions or anything like that. It's just going to be input elements. Type equals text, name equals username. Pop an ID in there just for posterity. Okay. No, maybe we'll give it a name at least. So username, line break, password, input, type equals password, name equals password, ID equals password. Line break. Input. Type equals submit. So we're going to refresh and see a delightful username, password, submit. I can say Eric, password hunter2, and I see my variables come through the query string, which again is not ideal for secured things, although we're not running HTTPS, so it's not secured anyway. If I were to change this to post, go back, refresh, Eric, hunter2, internet jokes are fun, right? Oh, this isn't going to work because I don't have that page created. Yeah, error for not found. Let's create that and then we'll look at the post. So we'll change this to get again. So save as process.php. Okay, so now I have an index file and a process.php file in the same directory, and I'm going to just write some very simple PHP code here. So with PHP, we can easily access the query string or the form data from post with the appropriate commands, which is self-evident when you say it that way. But I'm going to say $username. So if you want a variable, it has to be prefaced with a $, equals $_get username. It comes in as an array. And I can say the same thing for password. All right. So I've got my PHP variables here. I am getting form data. For reference, a little bit more of a secure way would be to create a session and use that instead of these raw variables, but separate topic. All right, so we've got H1. Welcome to our secret back alley page. Randomly coming up with things on the spot. H2, welcome. Inject the variable, username. Welcome, username. Your password is password. Close H2. All right, so standard HTML page, obviously missing all the extra stuff. And then we're just going to inject our variables here. Obviously, you could format this however you want for a quote-unquote real page. But we have a process page now. Let's go back. And I could say Eric and Hunter2. Here's our secret page. Welcome, Eric. Your password is password. Didn't come through. Because I forgot the $. There we go. Perfect. So what happened was I forgot to put the $. In this variable name, and it just interpreted this as a string. So something to be aware of. Okie doke. So like I mentioned, I'm using get if we wanted to do it with post. There's an easier way to even do this as well, but we can be very direct instead of get. We can use post. Obviously, this is not going to work because we no longer have oops. Oh, we didn't, my mistake. I forgot to update this variable too, or this attribute too. So I updated the form method to post, save it. I changed our PHP get calls to post. Now we're going to refresh this page, put some stuff in, and now we have same content. Difference though is if we watch the network, and hopefully you remember this from last time, I'm gonna go ahead and refresh. I click my element that was loaded. I go to payload. Here's that data. Why is he showing me this again? Well, just consider that we sent a username and a password through a form. Anybody can view this in their browser. I have no special powers with this instance of Chrome, right? So if I do this, say, on a common publicly shared computer, and I log into a website and they do something similar to this, or it's just a form for logging in, anybody else could come along and look at the form data. Pretty straightforward and pretty easily. Just be aware of these things as you go on your development journey, I suppose. Okay, so that's our form page. Pretty straightforward. Now let's do our fake article page. And all I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go to a demo that I already created in the interest of time so that we keep PHP to 1. Now I created another folder called PHP demo. And in here, I actually also did a form, PHP demo, and I styled it a touch just so that you can see that forms don't have to be standard, boring, ugly fields. So Eric and password, super secret hidden page, required Rick Astley for any login, obviously. But if we take a look at our index page here, what did I do? Well, I've got a style block where I set my form. So I created a form. Sorry, I created a form inside of a div. I gave the div an ID of f. Whatever is called f is 500 pixels wide, has a background. And then every single input has a 100% width, so it stretches. All right. It's fair to do something like this, oops, oh sorry, it's not going to stretch when I resize because I said it's 500 pixels wide. So the actual demo for that would be as if I made this, say, 800. That's read-only because I didn't do Vim. Trying to go fast now. To make this 1500 pixels, refresh, hey, it scaled. But point is, it's possible to style form elements as well. And obviously mine aren't super pretty, but you know, it's possible. Let your imaginations go wild. Same thing. The other part of the demo is this list.php. So if I were to check out this file, I've created an array in PHP, and I just loop through it, and I'm spitting out HTML data. So when we did our Rails application last time, where we looped through every single course in our model, the idea here would be the same thing. Let's loop through everything that we have in a particular object in PHP and put it in the page in line. So here I create an array of users, and in PHP, again, here's our variable, don't care about type. We're going to define it as an array with some parameters. And like all languages, you can define arrays in multiple ways. This is one where we can predefine it. And then we have our for each loop, which, of course, is going to have a different syntax than Rails and every other language we look at. That's for each. The first thing that, or the object that we want to loop through as iterator variable. So for each, here's my array, here's my iterator variable, and then I'm just going to echo out that user and put a line break with it. And we see something that looks kind of like this, right? I could be a little bit prettier here, so let's make this a UL, close the UL, and then instead of just echoing it out, I'm going to echo li dot user dot slash li, and then we can get rid of the line break here. And what we're doing here is concatenating. So I could have put the user variable inside the string, but I wanted to show you how to concatenate. Basically, list element concatenates a period, not a plus. Plus will not work. Variable, concatenate, and the HTML element. And when I refresh, I've got bullets. But I want them to be numbered. Well, let's change it to an OL instead of a UL. Refresh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then you could style these as you want to. Maybe you want different numeral systems or something of that nature. The idea then would be for that kind of an article page, instead of creating a simple array with pre-populated data, you would reach out to your database, select a bunch of data from rows, and then iterate through each one of those rows in your database and spit it out to your page. Okay, last point with PHP, since this video is getting much longer than I thought. What about MVC? Because everything else we're talking about is MVC, right? So Rails is MVC. The next video's Flask is going to be MVC. Can we do that in PHP? Absolutely. So there are frameworks in PHP for an MVC framework, and two of the ones that I'm most aware of are CakePHP and Codeigniter. Now, CakePHP I haven't used in a long time, and I know it's being updated and it's still active. I just personally haven't used it. Codeigniter I've always had a soft spot for. I used to do a lot of freelance web development a long time ago, and I would always turn to Codeigniter when I had a complicated application. But basically, these types of frameworks, they give you MVC. There's the routing, the models, the controller, the views, all that standard MVC paradigm, but it's in PHP. And Codeigniter, to me, it's pretty straightforward and easy to use. And if you're coming from Rails and you want to try out PHP, you're going to, the terminology is all going to be the same. It's just a different language syntax. Okay, other than that, next videos will be Flask. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.